Hello, and welcome to another episode of Empowering Equality, the Inclusive Workplace and Supply Council of Canada, or IWSCC's podcast on all things supplier diversity. I'm your host, Alex Dirksen, and I'm so excited to have a conversation with my guest today, Angela Sparks from Compass Group. Thanks so much for being on the show today, Angela.
Oh, thanks, Alex. No, we're really happy to be here.
Yeah, it's very exciting to have you on the show. It's been such a mix for me so far of folks who maybe I've had the chance to get to know, and some folks that I haven't. So I know we've corresponded a little bit, but this will be my first time getting to put a face to the name and to get to know you a little better. So I'm looking forward to that. To kind of dive right in, so you work with Compass Group, our IWSCC corporate member. Um, when I think of Compass Group, I do think back to times in high school or in university when I would kind of like pop by maybe like a cafeteria or something and see this logo here and there, always like a little bit attached to like to food and service and things like that. But I've never had a very concrete idea of what Compass Group does. Do you mind helping me understand a little bit better all of the parts that make up Compass?
Absolutely. No, that would be my pleasure. I think a lot of people share your perception of what Compass Group is. So, for clarification, Compass Group is a global company. So, I would be representing Compass Group Canada today. And we take care of third party services for all types of different businesses and industries. And although we do have a primary focus in food service, absolutely, our services kind of run the gamut. We can provide support for any sort of constructions, architectures, other sorts of consultants. We also support a lot in our B&I sectors for concierge services, things of that nature, project management, lots of different sorts of areas that we're kind of expanding to as we grow. Our baby and our number one priority always is our food service business, of course. And yes, you're absolutely right. We are present rather in a lot of colleges and universities and K to 12 schools, but we're also present in a lot of different B&I accounts. If you think of some maybe big banks or consulting firms. We also work with a lot of government contracts, things of that nature, healthcare. We really kind of run the gamut. Compass, our internal joke is we're the biggest company that you've never heard of.
It sounds like it. I as a corporate member, like I said, I have this kind of, I think even I have this surface level understanding, and maybe a lot of folks in our audience have that surface level too. Sort of hear little whispers of Compass Group here and there, but it sounds like you really are everywhere, all kinds of different avenues and opportunities for suppliers too, which is great. Do you mind telling me a little bit more? So you mentioned that you represent you're representing Compass Group Canada. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you do at Compass Group and maybe a little bit about how you found yourself in the supplier diversity space?
Yeah, absolutely. So I personally work with Foodbuy, which is the procurement branch of Compass Group Canada, and my role is the senior manager for responsible sourcing. So we take care of all of our different ESG, DEI, and supplier diversity components to our procurement process. A lot of that is driven by our clients as well as our internal kind of culture. For myself personally, how I ended up in this space, to be honest with you, growing up, I always wanted to be a lawyer. That didn't exactly pan out.
Okay.
I started working at the Chateau Lake Louise in Alberta in between semesters one year. And I just really got addicted to the hospitality industry. It was something that gave me a lot of joy. I'm definitely a people pleaser nature. And I just found it to be a really dynamic workspace and really loved the industry. And from there, that kind of led me in a roundabout way to working for Compass Group. Um, how I ended up in the diversity space, particularly, was definitely a passion project for myself. I was working as an account manager for the education sector within Foodbuy and supporting in that way. And there was a lot of different outreaches from our clients or from our operators asking about diverse suppliers and things of that nature. And this was something that I really kind of took the reins on for the company and decided to try my best to make this a priority. And I'll give absolute credit to Compass that over the years, the culture has definitely evolved where this has become really foundational piece of our culture and something that we're really proud of to be innovative leaders in our food service space. And for me, just on a personal level, and why the IWSCC is important to me. I actually have several members of my family that are disabled,
Mm,
and unfortunately, especially for invisible disabilities, I feel like people just have next to no level of awareness. And I really wanted to be a champion for the company and make sure that we are having equal opportunities for our suppliers and for clients, and um, really keeping those doors open and having an open mind to how people who are either veterans or disabled can really be wonderful contributors to our space.
yeah, I mean, that's all wonderful to hear. There's a little bit to unpack there, but there's so much that I think really resonates with me. First of all, I'll say we definitely, you and I have something in common in that we kind of started in the hospitality and the service space and ended up here in supplier diversity. I think hospitality is one of those sectors that a lot of folks maybe find themselves in that part-time job, that summer job, but is also a great place where I think everyone should try at least once. Working in service and for me in food, it was always so satisfying to be a part of helping people like feel satisfied, feel comfortable, and meeting their needs. And is also a great place where we have a lot of crossover with accommodation and empathy for other folks. So I think the I can see sort of the connective thread there in a way that I hadn't thought about before, actually. So that's
Honestly, I
really
say that to a lot of people, like, especially if you're not sure what you want to do with your life, go waitress for a year
mm,
or at least a period. I think that empathy is a muscle. And, the more you use it, and definitely in the service industry,
yeah.
you will flex that muscle every day. And you see all sorts of people, and you have an opportunity to really impact and imprint on people every day, which is supremely rewarding if you look at it through that lens.
Yeah, definitely, and that impact sort of like builds outward. And here at the IWSCC, we talk about sort of the snowball effect of supplier diversity a lot as well. You mentioned that you have people in your life who live with a disability, and I feel like for our listeners at home and for most people, uh, I don't know. I think you'd struggle to find someone out there who doesn't know someone with a disability or doesn't have a family member with a disability or doesn't have a disability themselves, where these days we're
Yeah.
looking at something like 25% of the population lives with some form of disability, and as we grow to understand things like invisible disabilities, energy related disabilities, neurodivergence, and so many other factors, even like pain related conditions, episodic or temporary disabilities that people live with that they may not necessarily show outwardly. It is a big world to understand and to be a part of, but we all sort of have our own lived experience in that space and our own ability to build up that empathy muscle and train it up a little bit as well. When you start to make an impact on anybody, but especially like someone from an underrepresented community, a diverse supplier, for example, we see that impact grow outwardly into the people that they know, the people that they support, and it again causes that snowball effect. Really builds up, and ideally a real economic snowball as well.
Yeah.
More opportunities, more success for more Canadians.
Absolutely. I would absolutely second that. I mean, myself, just for some self disclosure, I actually have autism. So, in terms of like invisible disabilities and understanding neurodivergence, and I feel like we've come a long way, definitely from when I was like coming up in school versus the current 2024 culture in the world, for people understanding how those sorts of invisible disabilities impact people. But I still think that there's a long way to go. I think, especially in the female space, for females with autism, I think that the symptoms are not necessarily as typical as people may associate.
Mm,
And I know that in my life, I've definitely had a lot of challenges with people really misinterpreting my interpersonal responses or really misinterpreting my motivating factors when maybe I dig in my heels on something, or it's I think perception is everything, and being able to not necessarily like label individuals, but understand where certain behaviors or um, maybe certain inflections are coming from is really powerful in having understanding, and again, kind of flexing that empathy muscle.
Definitely. I also just want to say, thank you for sharing that about yourself. I know it, especially in the case of invisible disabilities, I suppose because they are less obvious, it can be very difficult or take a real measure of courage to be willing to share that about yourself, especially in the professional space. So, thank you for sharing that with us today.
Yeah,
Very meaningful. And also very meaningful that it sounds like you're in a workplace that works for you and where you found a lot of success. Digging your heels in that sense, you mentioned that the supplier diversity program is sort of this little baby project that you've built up, and it's so much the case with supplier diversity professionals. There are a lot of hardworking folks out there. Working on the side of their desk, building these programs from the ground up, and I think we're really starting to see that ecosystem change and grow and develop. Just like you mentioned, the internal culture at Compass Group is changing. In the corporate membership and in the diverse suppliers that we work with as well at IWSCC, we see that mindset changing and growing. We see that new focus on corporate social responsibility, as the term goes, and on that sense of empathy and understanding of the ways that we can promote opportunity and by promoting more opportunities also grow innovation, grow competition, have better procurements, stronger supply chains, more flexible vendors, and so on and so forth. That perseverance that comes with being a person with a disability, a veteran, a member of the 2S LGBTQI plus community, indigenous, minority owned, and so on. The whole range of diverse suppliers out there who, for one reason or another, have had barriers put in their way because of something that they're not in control of. We see so much effort being put in by our community to be honest about those barriers and to help lift them and offer more opportunities to more vendors, more businesses, and so on out there. So it's always fantastic.
100%. But I would love to just kind of like echo in what you're saying. There's the old adage, right? The good mother necessarily fails. And I think that we can kind of extrapolate the lesson to that to the supplier diverse or the diverse supplier group. All of these folks in these different businesses and entrepreneurial spirits have really come up against, like we're saying, challenges that are completely out of their control within their lives. And I think that the success of these different diverse supplier programs and some of the wonderful innovations that we see come out of the space is really just a testament to how the spirit kind of triumphs over those different bits of diversity and how it does truly make you a better, stronger person. And I think that we see a lot of that in the innovations and just the tenacity of the diverse supplier group.
Excellent. Yeah, it's. I think we've had you've outlined so many of the qualities that we love about diverse suppliers and the businesses that we work with too. For our audience, for our listeners, we've talked a little bit about diverse suppliers. The IWSCC. We're an organization that certifies businesses owned by veterans and persons with disabilities, in our case, and helps
Yeah.
connect them with incredible businesses like Compass Group, who want to do more business with them and include more of them in their supply chain. um, what from your perspective on the sort of buyer side, how does certification with an organization like IWSCC help a business who wants to work with Compass Group, for example?
So for us at Compass Group, and especially in the Foodbuy space from a procurement lens, we have obviously, as a third party food service company, we have a tremendous amount of different clients, and they all have their own vision of what different EDI programs or ESG programs look like to them. And we're very much in a responsive state. So we'll go through a request for proposal process with different clients. And depending on what they outline, some people have evolved to a space where they are open to looking at diverse suppliers who are not necessarily certified. But many people require certifications within their KPI contracts with us. So keeping that in mind, allowing these suppliers to go through the certification process and the whole vetting process associated with us is our piece of due diligence for our clients to say that these are legitimately diverse suppliers.
Right. Yeah, and that is a very important part of, I think, a side of the IWSCC that may not always be as obvious from the outside is that, we ourselves have a little bit of a vetting process that helps us reassure and provide sort of security in that sense for our corporate members as well. We do certify businesses that are specifically, majority owned, operated, and controlled by members of the communities we serve. That's veterans and persons with disabilities, because we want to make sure that the success of these organizations and eventually the sort of the intergenerational and the expanding that snowball success that goes out, whether they pass that business down, they offer more job opportunities to their community, they build a new business after the success of their first, and so on. That success is staying in the community, that the is piloted by the community, and grows outward in a way that's meaningful to members of that community as well. So such a kind of maybe like a little less stated side of the IWSCC. And by doing that, we also always want to ensure that we're working with organizations where that the IWSCC can support properly too, organizations that want to do business with big business and that want to connect with our corporate members. For those organizations, if I wanted to say become a vendor, a supplier for Compass Group, what are maybe, I'm sure we can't go through the whole process today, but maybe what are some good first steps? Where's the best place for me to start?
For sure. I mean, we definitely just we first of all we believe in creating partnerships that prioritize diversity as part of our corporate culture. And a tool that we have, which I think has a very low barrier of access, is on our Compass Group Canada website. There is a Become a Supplier page. All of the links that are filled out from that form come directly to myself. And if there is a space in that form to designate if you consider yourself to be a diverse supplier. On an internal kind of back of house side, what I would then do with that information is reach out to my good partners like yourselves and try to vet those certifications. And if not, kind of log the fact that they are self identifying. And what we do with those different cohorts of applicants from the Become a Supplier page, and then, additionally, anybody that we met at like conferences or other cold calls, things like that, we put together into a package for our procurement team. And depending on what the different categories are, we'll put together who we think would be the best fit candidates to meet with our different category managers and ensuring that there is opportunity for small and diverse suppliers to meet with our large Compass Group Canada procurement team.
Right on. A little sort of a peer into the back of house. There's that hospitality side coming out. A little bit of restaurant terminology for the folks at home. I do have a couple questions that I always like to end these conversations with to get to know my guests a little better. But
Sure.
before we move away from the business talk and onto maybe just some quick personal talk, do you have anything else that you'd like to say to our listeners about Compass Group, about working with you, or just anything that you'd like to share?
For sure. I would like to say that apart from the presence of supplier diversity being a focus within our procurement team at Foodbuy, it's also a big presence in our people and culture team. We have a bunch of different IDACs within our company to allow people who identify within our associate team as different diversity groups to have um, a sense of belonging and a sense of action committee within our organization that are really supported from the top down. And we also really make a concerted effort to ensure that our vast number of operator level associates are aware of these programs and are able to participate. I would say also that we do a lot of partnership with our clients. Our clients have been really, really wonderful in supporting these initiatives for us. So I don't want to miss the opportunity to thanking some of our really present clients, especially in the post-secondary space, like Simon Fraser University and York University specifically, have really been supremely helpful in socializing these issues amongst the company. So I'm very grateful for their partnership. And then I would also just like to say thank you to yourself for giving us an opportunity to kind of explain where Foodbuy and Compass Group is coming from in this space and why this is such an important initiative for us.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And I will say, additionally, as a York University alumni, fantastic to hear that they're helping support Compass Group in so many great ways too.
Yeah.
Great opportunity to get to know Compass Group a little bit better. And before we go, I'd love the opportunity to get to know Angela Sparks a little better. I know that as busy professionals, especially maybe on our corporate side, sometimes these big organizations can seem like big hives full of bees all working away, but they're made up of people too. My first question for you is you're a busy professional. Maybe you don't have a whole lot of spare time, but when you find some time to yourself, do you have any hobbies or ways that you like to relax?
Absolutely. As I'm sure you can imagine, working in procurement can be tremendously stressful at times, especially when there's unforeseen events like a global pandemic, for
Mm-hmm.
instance. Something that I do almost every day and try to make a point for. I have a piano in my house, and I definitely take a break when I need to and play some music, and that really helps me calm down and be centered and be able to be present at work. So I think having an outlet is really, really important. And I will say that Compass has been hugely supportive in having a flexible hybrid model, which again allows us to have a lot of work life balance, which is supremely helpful in a job that sometimes can be around the clock, depending on whatever the global situation is.
Yeah, that's great to hear. We benefit from a very open minded model here at the IWSCC as well. I could definitely relate to the power of music. I've got sort of a sneaky guitar hiding behind me there, and art in general as an outlet for that stress, as a way to center yourself, as a way to explore sides of yourself that maybe we don't get to at work all the time when we're chugging away. So. That's great to hear. The
Yeah.
sounds as this conversation goes on, we have more and more in common. The As a former hospitality worker, and at one point, one of my sort of favorite summer jobs was just being a humble fry cook, making all day breakfast for folks. So I always
That
like
is
to
the
ask
best job. Sorry
everybody,
to interrupt you,
"Oh
but that
yeah,
is the best job in hospitality is being on the breakfast shift as a cook. I will give you that.
yeah, it's I mean, you can there I've never had a job quite like that where it's a million simple things that you just go, 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 go.
Yeah.
And there's something very meditative. You know, we talk about those outlets. It was like work is its own outlet when you're kind of busy. I will say front of house as well, kind of really getting into the groove and buzzing around the floor can also be just so strangely meditative. It's a very physical job. The no apologies necessary. I appreciate the interruption. The So when it comes to breakfast, if you could have your pick of the lot, what's your favorite breakfast food?
Mm, that's a tough one for me. I'm not really a breakfast eater.
Ah,
I'm so sorry.
oh, that's okay. I mean, sometimes busy professionals, especially. Sometimes there's folks out there who like just don't have time, aren't big eaters in the morning. I am a coffee for breakfast person. Sometimes I'll
Yeah.
admit.
I'm definitely like a breakfast for dinner person, though. I do really love breakfast food.
Right on.
And I'd say all time favorite is definitely like a bagel and lox. That's for sure my go to. Eat
Oh,
that probably more than I should.
it's it's an absolute classic, a gold
Yeah.
standard. You really just can't go wrong with a good bagel.
Yeah.
And Sort of my last question before we head out today, maybe a little more on the serious side, maybe not, but whether it's for business or for life, for our listeners, what's a good piece of advice?
Gosh. The world is truly your oyster. Life is, for better or worse, very much a game, and you will get out of it whatever you put into it. I would say don't be afraid, be brave, be bold, especially when we're in the supplier diversity space or in the supplier space, generally speaking. There are certain areas of the market that are so oversaturated. And having unique, bold ideas that you really have a lot of conviction about will be your differentiating factor in the marketplace. So, trust your instincts with the caveat of when it isn't working, do not be afraid to pivot.
Mm.
There's bravery in knowing when to cut your losses as well. So I feel like for a lot of people with that entrepreneurial spirit, um, you definitely have to have a lot of those qualities, but you also have to be able to listen and understand when maybe something isn't working exactly right. And I think a lot of times when you hear no's, what you're actually hearing is a lot of data points about what you could be doing differently and where
Mm.
there are opportunities. So, keep your eyes and your ears open as well.
For sure, feedback is as much an important part as it is having a great idea, something that you're very proud of. So that's I
Yeah.
think, a really fantastic piece of advice. And just thank you so much for joining me today on the show, Angela. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on Empowering Equality today. An absolute pleasure to get to know you a little better.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. It's been really great and I appreciate it.
Yeah, fantastic. And of course, thank you to our listeners for joining us today. Empowering Equality is hosted by the Inclusive Workplace and Supply Council of Canada, or IWSCC. We connect disabled owned and veteran owned businesses with opportunities across Canada. A big thank you to Pod Supply for producing this episode, and to our sponsors RBC and Bell for supporting our American Sign Language. As our 2024 ASL leader, RBC helps us provide American Sign Language for our events, our show, and all sorts of other things that we do, with additional support from champions like Bell. And that interpretation is supplied by Maple Communications Canada. If you want to learn more about the IWSCC, you can find us at www.iwscc.ca. If you want to learn more about Compass Group, you'll find the links to that Become a Supplier page in the description if you're a vendor out there who wants to learn more. And you'll find all those links down in the description. If you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did, and I hope you did, then be sure to like, subscribe, favorite, follow the show, IWSCC, Compass Group, Angela Sparks, Foodbuy. Thank you so much for joining us again today. Be bold, but don't be afraid to pivot, and keep on empowering equality. And we'll see you next time.